Okay, so we're getting into some more advanced object-oriented programming ideas here with our triangle example. We're going to continue that this time. And so before we created this basic triangle, right, we had the fields that we had the two basic constructors, right? We had three modifier methods here, and then we also had that print triangle method that kind of did everything for us. Then we had our triangle runner, right, which handled a lot of those things as well. So, complementary to every modifier method, we also will often create our accessor methods. So the accessor methods are going to be a first type of what we call a return method as well, right? A return method is a more general term for a method, meaning it's something that sends some information back to the original call location, right? So let's create these methods, and then we'll kind of dissect what they're doing after that. Then I'm going to create, I like to keep my code organized, right? So we have our accessor methods in this spot, right? I have my modifier methods up above that. And let's get started with that. So I'm going to do public because it's a public method. But this time, instead of writing void, I'm going to tell it what is the data type that is going back. And you'll recall that all three sides of this triangle were integers. I'm going to say int. And I'm going to call this get a. And now there's no parameters coming in, right? So empty parentheses, because there's nothing that's coming in. The purpose of this method is just to go and get information. So I'm going to create a lot of the basic structure that we've done before, but you're going to notice there's one big important piece to this. Every time, instead of saying void, we put any other data type, I'm going to also have to say return, because we have to return something, right? This int was the return type, so now I have to return something. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to return that variable, that instance variable that we talked about before, the item that we want to access, right? So I said get a, so I'm going to want to return side a, right? So we return side a, semicolon is the end of the statement, and that's it. That method, and the last thing that will ever happen in that method is it returns. So even if I wrote a bunch of stuff down below this, right, none of that would happen because the very first thing that happens there is we return, right? So just something to keep in mind. So this is a very simple method to write, right? We're just returning something. So I'm going to create ones for all of the other variables as well. Get b. Totally could be copying and pasting this. Might make it quicker, but I like to type it all out. And one more, int get c. Return side c. And there we go. Good, so we have our three accessor methods, and we're going to demonstrate them using our triangle runner as we did before. So compile, good, class compiled, no errors, excellent to see. So, like I said, we have three new methods, get A, get B, and get C, and the purpose of these is to get the information, and we can't normally access that information because we called these variables private before, right? So that's the only way we can get that information. And it's different than printing because we will often print that information, but we might do other things with it. So let's go into the triangle runner to demo this part out. So we saw before we created this default triangle, right? It had change A, B, C, right? Changed all of those things. Let's actually use one of these. So let's say I just did first try dot get A. Just put that call there. But what's actually going to happen is we're going to go to that object first try. We're going to it's going to run the method get A. And get A sends back some information. It sends back an integer, and that integer would then be in this location. Okay, so I'm going to actually, what we have to do with any return method is it's generally going to set that information to something, or maybe just print it. So I could do system.out.println. I could wrap this around in there, right? So what's happening here is you can kind of think about it as composition of functions from math, where we go to first try, that object, we get A, right? We run that method. That method sends back a number. In this case, it should be 6 because it's what we stored in that variable. And so then we do system.out.println on the number 6. So it would print out 6 for us. Right? Alternatively, maybe I wanted to do other things with that number. Right? Let's say I wanted to just store it. Int, I'm just going to call it some number. We're not going to make it very useful. Int some number, and then we're going to say that equals that information that I had before. So first try dot get A. Now inside of this spot, let's say I want to print some number. All right, so now we have this. What's going to happen is it's going to go and get A, sets that to be this integer some number, and then we print some number. So I go ahead and compile, no errors. We run this thing. think I forgot to clear from the last video, so probably gonna see a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So we see 6, 8, 10 again here like we had last time. Actually, here's all this stuff from this one run. So we printed that line, right? And that's all we did. So that's the purpose of an accessor method, is they go and get the information for us. They're often called getters, right? We had the setters were our modifier methods. We have the getters are our accessor methods, and that's what's happening here. So we get that information. We can use that in any way that we might want, right? So we'll use that in way more advanced ways eventually as well. But that's just the basics. And in many cases, when we do object-oriented programming, right, we create these accessors as well as the modifiers to keep things encapsulated and keep all of our information together in one type. All right, so there we go.